What's up, everybody? I am doing a Commander deck tech. So something I thought of was because I have a lot of experience now with Commander, and well, I build strong decks, apparently. A lot of my friends, people I play with, uh, they just tell me I build strong decks, and then they ask, how do I build these decks? Like, how do I seem to always have the right play at the right time, sort of thing. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if I just built decks and then explained how I built that deck? But because I built so many decks, I decided that I wanted to make it a little bit fair and actually like kind of do some random decks I maybe haven't built before, so you could see how I went about the process of building like a new deck for the first time. So I guess we can get into it. So again, this is a new segment that I'm doing for my stream and for YouTube. I'm calling it Commander Randamonium. The reason for that is because every Saturday, or I'm going to try to do it every Saturday, I will be doing one random Commander deck tech. What I mean by that is I'm going to be going to edhrec.com, is the best tool I know of for building Commander, and there they have a random button, so I'll be hitting the random button, and basically the first commander that pops up that I own, I will be building a deck around. So that's what I did today. I went on there, clicked the random button, got a random commander that I owned, and built a deck on it. So the first time I hit it, I did not own that commander. Got it on the second one, though. So... And I have not actually built this deck before. I've built decks similar to the theme that you'll see, but I have not built one actually based on this commander, so it should be interesting. The second part, too, is because it's not just fun to make a deck about it and then explain how I built the deck, it's cool to see it in action as well. So Wednesdays, I'm going to try to get some content going with a group of friends, playing some Commander, and then playing the deck that I do on Saturdays in those games, so we can see exactly how well it does. See if it does really well and I get obliterated like first player out, or if I just keep it up and like the whole table just can't stop me, or it just does absolutely horrible, and in which case, you know, boo-hoo for us. So, without further ado, I will go ahead and get into it. So, one of the first things I do, obviously, is choose the commander. The commander in this case is Grismold the Dreadsower. So, here he is. He is a 3-mana, 1 a colorless, a black, and a green. Legendary creature troll shaman. He has trample. Beginning of your end step, each player creates a 1/1 green plant creature token. Whenever a creature token dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Grismold the Dreadsower. And it is a 3/3. So, pretty good. Built some other decks, like I said before. Never built one of him, so this should be interesting. So, Grismold is our commander. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I first go into a deck, as I mentioned before, edhrec.com, I like going in there and kind of building what I would call like a pre-constructed deck. What I mean by that is on the website they give you kind of like a pie graph, and they'll break down like how many average creatures are in a deck, how many average instants, sorceries, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalker lands, that kind of thing. So what I do is say, like for this instance, this deck said 23 creatures. So what I did was took 23 creatures, went down the list percentage-wise of what percentage did this creature make the decks. And I chose the top 23, put it in the deck. Did the same for like instant, sorcery, artifact, enchantment, planeswalker, lands. Now why I call that a pre-constructed deck is because I didn't do anything to make that deck, really. I just took creatures that made it into a lot of decks and put those in the deck. So that's why I call it a pre-constructed deck. I also am pretty sure on EDHREC that if you click, there's supposed to be something on there. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I think if you do this, I don't know, there's like a link that I think you can basically buy this deck off of EDHREC, and it'll basically take like what I just said, like the top percentages of those, and put it into a deck, and then you can like buy the thing. So basically, that's why I call it a pre-constructed deck. So with that in mind, so like I said before, this one had 23 creatures, so I'm going to run through real quick the 23 creatures in the pre-constructed part of this deck. So give me a second. Alright, and I'm just going to run through these real quick. I'll spend more time on the cards that actually make it into the deck. So like I said, not all of these are going to actually make it into the deck, but I just want to show you really quick what like the pre-constructed part of this deck would kind of look like. So first we have Clackbridge Troll. Then we have a Species Specialist, Bloodseeker, Massacre Girl, Poison Tip Archer, Blood Artist, Mycoloth, Zulaport Cutthroat, Winding Constrictor, Sir Conrad, Sakura Tribe Elder, Falconwrath Noble, Corpsejack Menace, Pitiless Plunderer, Yeheni Undying Partisan, Arasta of the Endless Web, Massacre Worm, Woe Strider, Avenger of Zendikar, Viserys Seer, Llanowar Elves, Butcher of Malakir, and Sangromancer. So one of the other things I should have pointed out is that I don't own every card in the game. So obviously when I'm going down the list, I'm taking the first 23 creatures that are on it that I actually own. So there's probably some other cards out there, creature-wise, that I would like to add into this deck that I just don't own, so they couldn't make it. And unfortunately, I don't have the budget to go out and buy all the cards that I want. So that'd be nice. I would love to do that, but I don't have that available to me. So real quick, I'm just going to try to change the lighting a little bit, see if I can get it a little bit better. That way the cards aren't, like, glistening or whatever. Alright. See if that makes it a little bit better. So, those are the creatures. 23 of them. Next, there should be 7 instants. So again, I'm looking at the pie graph. Saying 7 instants. So the top 7 instants that I own go into the deck. So, we have Golgari Charm, Putrefy, Beast Within, Village Rites, Turn of the Wild Speaker, Death Sprout, and Heroic Intervention. So those are our 7 instants, top instants that make it into an average Grismold deck. Next we have sorceries. There are 10 of them. So we got Cultivate, Rampant Growth, Kodama's Reach, Farseek, Casualties of War, Read the Bones, Gaze of Granite, Harmonize, Rishkar's Expertise, and Diabolic Tutor. So those are the, again, top 10 most average Grismold deck will have these 10 cards in it that I own. Next we have artifacts. Now, I do want to point out something about when I make decks. When I make a deck, I want to have a part of me in that deck. Now, what I mean by that is I have favorite cards. I'm sure you also have favorite cards. Cards that you just really like. I suggest always putting in at least one card, even if it might not fit the deck correctly. Just that you own, that you enjoy playing with. It could be a cheap card, it could be an expensive card, it could just any card that you want. So in that instance, when we go to artifacts, there should be 9 of them. So the card that I really like, Vidalcan Ori. I'm going to throw a shout out to the Command Zone podcast because I follow them quite a bit. They love to play Vidalcan Ori. So I went out, got one, got a foil one, got the one that I really like. This is a card I'm probably going to be putting in probably every deck. Love this card. It's really good. Yeah, so Vidalcan Ori is my card. This is my card in the deck. So out of the 99 that go in the deck, this is my signature card, I guess you could say. So outside of the like average what you would put in the deck. So with that in mind, so now we have the 8 other artifacts. So we have Soul Ring, of course, goes in every commander deck. Skull Clamp, Golgari's Signet, Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, Dousing Dagger, the Ozolith, and Whisper Silk Cloak. And then once again, like I said before, I'm not going to go through every card, just because every card didn't make the deck at the end of this, so when they make the deck, I'll go over it a little bit more. So next is Enchantment. There's actually 15 enchantments in this deck, so in the pre-con version of this deck. So let's start Revel in Riches, Bastion of Remembrance, Moldervine Reclamation, Deathreap Ritual, Dictate of Erebos, Gift of Doom, Hardened Scales, Black Market, Hydra's Growth, Necrogenesis, Phyrexian Arena, Parallel Lives, Snake Umbra, Dreadhorde Invasion, and Cryptolith Rite. So again, these are the 15 what I own average cards that would go into a Grismold, the Dreadsower deck. Then we had one Planeswalker. So we have Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, as the Planeswalker. And then it said that there are 34 lands. So I got 34 lands. What I put in a deck is basically 36. I try to keep 36 lands in the deck. So as you'll see when we go on, we're going to change out a couple cards that are in the deck for lands, because 36 is what I would put in a deck. If it's like a landfall deck or a lands matter deck, then I tend to go like 38, 40 lands. But in my average deck, I try to do 36 lands. So in a 2-color deck, what I find is usually the most effective is at least 30 basic lands. So I split them up usually 15, in this case 15 forests, 15 swamps. And that's just because you're playing 2 colors, you don't really need to mana fix, you're going to get your colors by just drawing a swamp and a forest. So you don't really need to get like really fancy with it. Just 30 at least basic lands, split them up, should be good to go right out of the box. So and then our 4 lands that are not basic, of course, Command Tower. We got Llanowar Wastes, a Woodland Cemetery, and a Golgari Rot Farm. What I also like to do is if the land comes into play tapped, I generally do not put it in the deck. Tapped lands are basically, they're just bad. They're just really bad. I'd rather have a basic swamp than a tapped dual land. And, basic forest rather than a tap. Now, Golgari Rot Farm does come into play tapped, but you're tapping it for 2 mana, and you're getting that land back to your hand, so you can play it like next turn for your land drop. So it's really pretty good, because you're basically gaining a mana by playing it. So, which other the other lands that come into play tapped, you don't get that. So, and that's basically the pre-con of this deck. So that's what it looks like. So now I will show you what I do after building this part. So once I've built this part, I've got my lands, my Planeswalker, my enchantment, artifacts, sorceries, my instants, my creatures. I have a system where I have I put basically into, was it 4 or 5 piles. So I have my card draw, my mana ramp, my single targeted removal, my board wipe, and my protection. So what I try to do is 7 card draw spells, 7 ramp spells, 7 single target removal, 4 board wipes, and then 3 protection spells. And that's generally just because you want to at least run into one of those during the course of the game. And 7 should get you there. Or maybe not even the course of the game. Like early on in the game, you want to have at least a card draw spell, a ramp spell, and some type of removal. Usually what I find is putting at least 7 in the deck, shuffling it up. You tend to, more often than not, draw those cards, or at least like in the early games, draw into them. So that's what I found to be the most useful. So what I do is I'll go with creature first, and I'm just gonna basically go through the cards and see what do I have. What do the cards count for creature, for card draw, ramp, removal, board wipe, protection type thing. So going through, so like Llanowar Elves, taps for a green. That's technically ramping you, so we'll put that in the ramp pile. Go through. Now Massacre Worm, I don't count as a board wipe because creatures your opponents control -2/-2 until end of turn doesn't wipe the board in most cases, so I don't count it there. So keep going. Let's see. So Sakura Tribuilder, sacks to get a land. That's mana ramp. We got Sarkara, Constrictors, Zulaport, like Mikaloth. I don't really know how to say the name. Mycloth, something like that. Alright, Massacre Girl. I do count that as a board wipe because more often than not, when I see this card played, it wipes the board. So we're going to put that in our board wipe pile. Bloodseeker, so Species Specialist does draw cards when creatures you choose of the certain type die. So we're going to put that in card draw. And then Clackbridge Troll, I'm also going to put in card draw because if an opponent decides to sack a creature to tap it, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So more often than not, turn 5, nobody wants to get hit for 8, you're going to be drawing a card from it. So we're going to put that in our card draw pile. So that's our creatures. So now we can go to our instance. So we got card draw, ramp, removal. We'll do protection next to removal, and then board wipe over here. So we got Heroic Intervention. That's protection. Protects our stuff. So we'll put that over here. Death Sprout. Destroy target creature. It does also ramp us, but this is basically in the deck more to single target removal. So we're going to put it here. It just has that extra benefit, which is awesome. Turn of the Wild Speaker is draw cards, so we'll put it over here. Village Rite also draw cards, so it goes over here. Beast Within removal. Putrefy's removal, and then Golgari Charm can be removal, but I really like the regenerate each creature you control on this, so I'm actually going to put it over in our protection. So going to sorceries, Rishkar's Expertise draws a card, well, draws lots of cards. Harmonize draws cards. Gaze of Granite, that is a board wipe, so we'll put it over here. Read the Bones is drawing cards. Casualties of War, I actually put this in single target removal because it's not wiping the board. You are clearing multiple things from it, but you're not wiping it, so put that in under single target removal. And then we got Farseek, Kadama's Reach, Rampant Growth, Cultivate, that is all ramp. Alright, moving on to artifacts. So we got that. So Dousing Dagger I actually put in ramp because when it flips, it gives you a land for that taps for 3 mana. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that over in the ramp. And then Signet, that's ramp. Skull Clamp is drawing cards. Soul Ring is ramp. And then Valkanori is just our fun little card. Cryptolith Rite is ramp. Got Dreadhorse. So Snake Umbra is actually card draw, because when you deal damage, you'll draw a card. Paralyzed Phyrexia Arena, that's card draw. Black Market is ramp, because you're getting all that mana at the beginning of your turn. And again, I'll go through these cards in more detail once we've actually put them in the deck. Right now, we're just making our piles. We're not actually putting any of these cards in the deck yet, so... so we got Hard Scales, get Doom, Dictate Rainbow. So Death Reap Ritual, that's our card draw. Moldavine Reclamation is card draw. Revel and Riches, ramp. When creatures die, you get ramp. I don't include the Planeswalkers into any of these categories, mainly just because I think of a Planeswalker like a player, and they can get taken out super easily. Usually Planeswalkers are super hated out of the game, so I don't usually include Planeswalkers. I'll include them in the deck, but I don't include them in these piles or any other piles. Well, just in these piles. I don't include them in these piles. Usually in these piles, we want the card to stick and do its purpose. Planeswalkers, you might only get one, maybe two abilities out of it, so we don't include it. I also don't include lands in any of these categories, just because I want my lands to tap for mana. Generally, if I'm going to use a different ability on the land, it's got to be something that I'm not trying to rely on a land to draw a card type thing. So, alright, so we have our piles. So again, we wanted at least 7 card draw, 7 ramp, 7 single target, 3 protection, and then we wanted 4 board wipes. So we'll count up each pile. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in card draw right now. And this is the pre-constructed. So in the pre-constructed, 12 card draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ramp. 1, 2, 3, 4 single target removal, so that's lacking. 2 protection, so we're basically -1 there. And then 2 board wipes, so we're -2 there. So, this is where we start to basically change these piles out. So first I'm going to start with card draw. So again, we had 12 card draw, we only need 7. What I like to do is with card draw and ramp. So card draw first, I like to go with enchantment and artifact, because I'd rather have card draw that's going to get me cards over the course of the game, and enchantment and artifact is more difficult to get rid of than like a creature. And then instant and sorcery, usually an instant and sorcery type of card draw is circumstantial, plus you're only going to get 1 activation out of that most of the time, so I'd rather go with something more reliable like an enchantment or artifact when it comes to card draw. So we're going to put, let's see, we got Moldavine Reclamation, Death Reap Ritual, Phyrexian Arena, Snake Umbra, Skull Clamp. So we have 5 enchantment / artifacts. And then again, like I said, like instant and sorcery, I tend to kind of shy away from, unless I absolutely need to put it in just to get my card draw. So in this case, we're going to go with the 2 creatures to get our 7. So Species Specialist and Clackbridge Troll. And again, we'll go through these and maybe switch them out, just depending on, we'll see. So with these ones, since they're left over, I'm just going to put them back into the sorcery pile and the instant pile, which I think is over there. We'll move these piles around real quick. So again, so we have our 7 here, and I'll go over them again, like I said, when they actually make the deck. So now we'll go over our ramp. Now what I like to do with ramp is, if it's going to put a land into play, I tend to go lean more towards that, because lands are super hard to get rid of in Commander, and it's more of an unwritten rule in Commander to not touch people's lands. So I tend to lean more towards cards that are going to put lands into play and ramp you than cards that are going to sit on the field and could be targeted, and then if, they blow up or whatever, you don't have your ramp anymore. So let's go ahead and see if we have any that put lands into play. So we have Farseek puts a land into play. Kadama's Reach puts lands into play. Rampant Growth, Cultivate. Sakura Tribuilder sacks to get a land, so I count that as putting a land into play. Alright, so that's all of our lands. Dousing Dagger technically puts a land into play, but it can get removed. So I don't necessarily count that as, like, land ramp. So, next, basically what we do here is, what is the cheapest thing? And again, I'm looking towards my artifacts and enchantments, kind of staying away from, like, Llanowar Elves, just because if it gets removed, you're kind of out of luck there. Plus, it's a lot easier to get rid of a creature than it is an artifact or an enchantment. So, I tend to go towards the lower CMC costs. So basically, Soul Ring, 1 mana, ramps you pretty good. And then we got basically the Signet or the Right. I like to go for the Signet just because it's Crypto the Right, creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. There you could have instances where somebody board wipes and this card becomes useless. And then the creatures you put into play, you can't tap them because they have Summoning Sickness. So it's better to just have the Signet, especially early on in the game. It's just better. So I'll include the Signet. And that's our 7. So we got 5 that put lands into play, and then we got our Soul Ring and our Signet. And again, I'll go over them more once these cards actually make the deck. We're just kind of picking our rough 7 to make it in, because we're going to switch cards out and stuff. So these we'll put back in the enchantment pile, an artifact, and creature pile. Alright, so here we have 4. So we need 3 more single target removal. So at this point, when I need to start adding cards, I'll go through kind of like what EDH Rec's suggestions and see if there's any good, solid, like, removal cards, maybe lower down on the list that would kind of add in. For single target removal, I lean more towards instants, just because I've had instances where, like, somebody plays something and I'm just like, oh man, I have this sorcery in my hand, or I have a creature in my hand that can get rid of it, but I need to get rid of it now. Really wish this could be instant speed. So I definitely tend to lean more towards instants when I'm talking about single target removal. So with that in mind, I went ahead and went through already to pick 3 instants that I feel actually do really well. And actually, since I'm on this subject, no, we'll do that later. Yeah, so 3 instants. The ones that I chose were Corrosive Grip, Windgrace's Judgment, Return to Nature. Alright, so, of course, we have to make 3 spots in the deck. So what I do is, so we got 3 instances here. I go to my instant pile. Village Rites, Return of the Wildspeaker, 2 cards we did not need for our card draw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch these out, put in 2 of the single target removal, since we don't need these. So we're going to get rid of Village Rites, Return of the Wildspeaker. We're going to put in a Corrosive Grip, add it to our single target removal, and Windgrace's Judgment, add it to our removal. And then we'll put these cards off to the side. Alright, so for Return to Nature, again, it's an instant. So I'm going to go... Basically, I can go to any pile for card that we kind of got rid of. In this case, I'm just going to take the Return to... Or read the, actually, you know what? I'll take the Harmonize. I'll take the Harmonize out, since it was a card draw that we didn't need, and put in Return to Nature into removal. So there we are. We have our 7. And again, we didn't really have to minus anything from the deck because we already had our card draw. Going over here, so we have our protection. We needed 1 more for protection. So we have Heroic Intervention, Golgari Charm. Protection, I try to lean more towards instant. Just because if somebody tries to play something to either board wipe or just do something that is going to affect your board, usually you want to respond to instant speed or have like some kind of instant speed effect. When looking through the list, I only found the Heroic Intervention Golgari Charm. However, I did find an enchantment that is Protection. That can offer protection at instant speed, and that is Asceticism. So I'm going to count that as part of our protection slot. And again, we can go through here. I will take out the Rishkar's Expertise that we didn't need earlier and throw in Asceticism. So now we have our 3 protection spells. And then board wipe. So we needed 2 more because we have Massacre Girl and Gaze of Granite. So we need 2 more board wipes. Again, looking through EDH Rec, Toxic Deluge and Decree of Pain I felt were the best. I really wish I owned a what is that? Damnation. Yeah, I really wish I owned a Damnation. That would definitely go in the deck, but I do not. So Decree of Pain and Toxic Deluge are going to fill those slots. So we're going to go over here. We're going to get rid of Dousing Dagger, since we don't need that. Make a slot for Toxic Deluge. And then for Decree of Pain, let's get the Llanowar Elves out of here. We don't need that. Decree of Pain. Alright, so now we have gotten all of our slots. So we have 7, 7, 7, 3, 4. So we're good. So we have all of our slots. Now, we want to make sure that we have the best possible cards in those slots. So we chose cards from the pre-constructed deck to fill these slots. Now let's see if we can expand it and put something better in these slots. So right now for card draw, this is what we have. When I was going through, I did find something better. So again, like I said before, usually I want to put in enchantment and artifact in this slot. However, I don't really like putting or relying on enchantment auras to draw cards. So, I only found one pretty good draw card spell, and I'm going to switch it out for Snake Umbra. Again, it has Totem Armor, which is good for protection, but I feel like we're going to have enough protection in this deck already. Just, you have to deal the damage to draw a card. If the creature gets removed, this basically is just gone. So, I'm going to replace with Idol of Oblivion. So, Idol of Oblivion, tap to draw a card, activate this ability only if you created a token this turn. So, for 2 mana, and because our commander is going to get us a token every turn, we're basically just tapping to draw a card every turn. Really good. Don't have to rely on combat damage. It's really good. So our 7 card draw spells now that we have: Idol of Oblivion, 2 mana, tap, draw a card, activate this ability only if you create a token this turn. You can also pay 8 and tap it to sacrifice it, and then create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. I don't think I've ever done that. This card is really just for drawing a card. Clackbridge Troll, 5 mana, creature troll. Trample and haste. When Clackbridge Troll enters battlefield, target opponent creates 3/0/1 white goat creature tokens, which we'll see is actually really good for this deck. We want opponents to have creatures. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If a player does, tap Clackbridge Troll, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. So more often than not, especially since we're going to be clearing creatures off the board, the opponent's going to want to have this thing tapped so it doesn't smack him in the face. Or it doesn't smack them in the face. So you're going to be drawing a card from this. Species Specialist, 4 mana, creature, human, warrior. It's a 2/3. As Species Specialist enters battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you may draw a card. Most likely in this deck, we'll be choosing plants. Because we're going to be making some plants. The plants are probably most likely just going to die. And again, this says when a creature of the chosen type dies, like, you don't have to control the creature. So if someone wants to chump block with one of the plants you gave them, you draw a card. So pretty good. Skull Clamp. Classic commander card, especially with token decks. 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. When a creature dies, draw 2 cards, and it has an equip of 1. So basically, you just equip this to one of your plant tokens, you draw 2 cards. Phyrexian Arena, another classic commander card. 3 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So basically, for 1 life, you draw a card. Basically, you're drawing 2 cards every turn. Death Reap Ritual, 4 mana enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. There's going to be lots of creatures dying in this game. Drawing lots of cards off that. And then we have Moldervine Reclamation, is a 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So, again, we're going to be stacking stuff. We're going to want creatures off the field. Whenever one of our creatures dies, we're going to gain life, and we're going to draw a card off of it. So, pretty good. So these are the 7 that I'm going to go with. Pretty good. So these are our 7 card draw spells that are going in the deck. So now we'll go to our ramp. And I don't think I changed anything out with ramp. No, I think our ramp is pretty good. I think the only thing that I considered, you can do either way, is Golgari Signet, basically swapping it out for an Arcane Signet. You can basically do whichever one you want in this case. I'm most likely going to switch out Golgari Signet for Arcane Signet, just because Arcane Signet is better. I mean, they do basically the same thing, but it's better. So we'll switch the Golgari Signet out. Again, you can have either one. It doesn't really matter. I just think Arcane Signet's better in this space. So Arcane Signet, 2 mana. Tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So really good. Soul Ring, 1 mana. Tap, add 2 colorless. Sakura Tribuilder, 2 mana creature Snake Shaman. Sacrifice it. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it on the battlefield. Tap. Shuffle your library. More often than not, what you want to do with this card is play it. Wait until the end of the opponent to your right. So basically, right before it's about to be your turn, sack this creature. If someone tries to attack you, you block with it, sack it in response to the block. So, pretty good. Cultivate. 3 mana, search your library for 2 basic lands, reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield tapped, 1 into your hand. Not only does it ramp you, but it gives you a land to play next turn in case you were going to miss your land drop. So, pretty good. Rampant Growth. 2 mana. Sorcery, search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Kadama's Reach, it basically is Cultivate. It does exactly what Cultivate does, so why not have 2 of them? And then Farseek, search your library for a Plains, Island, Swamp, or Mountain card, and put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Important to note with this card, you don't have to get a basic land. You could go get a dual land. Any land that says Plains, Island, Swamp, or Mountain on it, you can get it, put it in the battlefield tapped. So that card's pretty solid. So these are our 7 ramp spells. So now we go to single target removal. These are our 7. And what I did for this is I actually took Casualties of War out. Again, like I said before, it's a sorcery. I like to have instant speed removal. It's also 6 mana. It does do a lot for 6 mana, but to take up your entire turn, basically, and not even wipe the board seems really bad. So I'm taking this out. In its spot, I put Heartless Act in it. One thing I also like to do... oh, I just bumped the camera. Sorry. What I like to do here, when I look at my single target removals, I like to have a kind of an even amount of creature removal and artifact enchantment removal. So I like to kind of sort it that way. So we have Heartless Act, which is creature. Return to Nature is enchantment artifact. Windgrace's Judgment is basically anything, so we'll just put it there. Cursing Grip, enchantment artifact. Putrefy is artifact or creature, but I'm going to put it in the creature slot. Beast Within is pretty much anything, and then Death Sprout, again, creature. So, we got 3 creatures, 2 basically anything, and then 2 enchantment / artifacts. So that's pretty good variance there. So I really like where we're at here. So that's going to be our single target removal. So again, Death Sprout's a 4 mana instant. Destroy target creature, search your library for a basic land, put on battlefield, tap, shuffle your library. Again, creature removal, and it ramps you. Pretty sweet. Putrefy, 3 mana, destroy target artifact creature, can't be regenerated. So it's pretty good removal. 2 mana, Heartless Act, instant, choose one, destroy target creature with no counters on it, or remove up to 3 counters from a target creature. Generally, if somebody's not playing a countered, put counters on stuff deck, this card's just going to destroy a creature, so... Beast Within's might be one of the best like green removals because it's 3 mana instant, destroy target permanent, so can hit anything on the field. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. You don't really care about that. You just because the thing that you're getting rid of is much scarier than that 3/3. Windgrace's Judgment. It's a 5 mana instant. For any number of opponents, destroy target non-land permanent that player controls. So basically, for 5 mana. At instant speed, which again is different than Casualties of War, you can look at each opponent and just destroy the grossest thing that you see on their board. Cursing Grip, 3 mana, instant with split second, so basically if nobody can really respond to this unless they want to tap for mana. So like if you're going to take out a Soul Ring with this, they could technically tap the Soul Ring to get the 2 colorless before it being destroyed. But outside of that, you can't even like counter this. You're basically destroying whatever you want for artifact or enchantment. So pretty good removal there. And then Return to Nature, 2 mana instant, choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or in some cases, exile target card from a graveyard could be really good. If someone's gonna bring back something that's super gross, you don't have anything on the field that's an artifact or enchantment you really want to target, exile target card from a graveyard. Pretty good. So that's our 7 single target removals. So our protection. So again, for 5 mana, again we added the Asceticism in. It's a 5 mana enchantment. Creatures you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So basically just gives all your creatures hexproof. Can't be targeted. For 2 mana, regenerate target creature. So again, that can help be our protection. Like if someone's going to board wipe, you have 2, 4, 6 mana up. You can regenerate those creatures so they won't get destroyed when the board wipe happens. And you can do it at instant speed, so it's like having instant speed protection. Golgari Charm, 2 mana instant, choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 until end turn. Destroy target enchantment or regenerate each creature you control. So again, regenerate each creature you control helps save you from a board wipe. You also have the other options of giving -1/-1 to everything or destroying an enchantment. So pretty good utilization there. And then Heroic Intervention, 2 mana, instant, permanents you control, gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Really good protection as well. So these are our 3 protections. And then we got our board wipes. So I went ahead and these are going to be our board wipes. Decree of Pain is 8 mana, sorcery. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So again, that could hurt us. But what we're most likely going to do... Oh, and then you draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. It does have a 5 mana cycling. So when you cycle this card, you're going to discard it and draw a card. But when you cycle Decree of Pain, all creatures get -2/-2 on a turn, which could be relevant as well. Again, I wish I had a... what is it? Damnation. Damnation would definitely take the spot of Decree of Pain. However, that card's really expensive. I don't have it, so... Decree of Pain is where we're at. Toxic Deluge. 3 mana sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Toxic Deluge, pay X life. All creatures get -X/-X till end of turn. This is really good removal. Gets around indestructible stuff. Yeah. So, and all creatures getting -X/-X. So even if it's indestructible, if it's a 5/5 indestructible, you pay 5 life, it dies. So, really good removal. Gaze of Granite. It's an X 3 mana spell. Sorcery. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less. This could be really bad against someone who's playing like an artifact deck. They could have like 10, 15 artifacts. You pay like 4 into this and just wipe their entire board, plus all the creatures. I mean, it's a really good mass removal spell. And then Massacre Girl. Again, really good. I've always seen this just wipe the board with everything, especially since there's going to be tokens on the field. This should wipe the board. And then it's -1/-1, so even indestructible stuff will die as well. It's 5 mana for a legendary creature, Human Assassin. It has Menace. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until each end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So it just keeps stacking. So if it comes into play, and it kills a 1/1, then everything else gets another -1/-1. If there's something that was a 2 toughness, then that dies. And then everything else gets a -1/-1. And it just keeps chaining until basically everything is dead except Massacre Girl. So really good. And those are our board wipes. So again, we have 7, 14, 21, 24, and 28. So these are our first 28 cards in the deck. So these are definitely going to be sitting in our deck. Oh. So, what do we do with the other slots in the deck? So, I don't know if you noticed going through the cards, the deck does have a theme to it based out of what we got for our pre-constructed. That's basically aristocrat stuff, counters, and tokens. So we're going to try to stay to that theme as much as we can. What I generally like to do is try to get at least 20 cards centered on one of the themes the deck's trying to do. So in this case, there were a lot of aristocratic type cards. So I kind of went with about 20. If we can do about 20 aristocratic cards. For this, I'm adding 2. Okay, so let's look through the cards and see what we got for aristocrat. Sangromancer, whenever a creature and opponent dies, you gain 3 life, so that's aristocrat. Butcher of Malakir. Saraseer, this can go into our token pile. Woe Strider, it's a sack outlet. Go over here. Massacre Worm cares about things dying. Rasta is tokens. Yaheni is a free sack outlet, also cares about things dying. Piteous Plunderer cares about things dying. Corpsjack Menace is counters. Falconwrath Noble cares about things dying. Sir Conrad cares about things dying. Whining Constrictor cares about counters. Zulapor Cutthroat cares about things dying. Michaeloth, this can kind of go both ways because when it comes into play, you're sacking stuff. So in a way, it's aristocratic. But more than likely, it's going to be creating Saprolings, so it's going to go under our token pile. It could go in both, so if we're like lacking in our pile for aristocrats, we can go ahead and just put it over here. Blood Artist cares about things dying. Poison's Archer cares about things dying. Bloodseeker, it doesn't go into any of these piles, so I'm just going to kind of put it off to the side here. Read the Bones, again, doesn't go to any of these piles. Diabolic Tutor doesn't go to any of these piles. We'll put it off to the side. Whisper Silk Cloak, it does care about protection, and there are a few protections in this deck, so I'm just going to kind of put them up here. The Ozlith cares about counters. Lightning Greaves, again, Swiftfoot Boots, and then Vidalcan Ori is just our personal card that we're just putting in the deck, so we'll put it right here. Revel in Riches cares about when things die. Black Market cares about when things die. Cryptolith Rite, again, doesn't fulfill any of those slots, so we'll put it over here. Dreadhorde Invasion, tokens. Peril of Lives, tokens. Necrogenesis, tokens. Hydra's Growth cares about counters. Hardened Scales cares about counters. Gift of Doom, it's more of the protection, so we'll put it over here. Dictative Erebos cares about things dying. And Bastion of Remembrance also cares about things dying. It does create a token, but we want it more for things dying. And then Garruk, our Planeswalker, we actually want to put this in the token slot because it's going to care about tokens. So we'll put them over here. So those are our piles. So we do have 4 cards that don't really go fit any type of what we're trying to do. So we can take these cards out and fill these slots with cards. So just swap them out. So let's count up our aristocrat pile. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have 16 cards in our aristocrat pile. So we need 4, which is cool because we have 4 cards here. So I went through the list, pulled out 4 cards that I thought were aristocratic, and I'm looking at it now, and I think I went down to 3. So for here, it looks like I did put my cloth in the aristocrat since it is sack. And again, 20 is kind of the rough number. You I guess 15 to 20 would be good to kind of fill that slot, especially since in this case we have 3 different themes, it looks like, that the deck's trying to go for. Generally, if there were 2, what I'd say is probably 20 and 10. But I guess if there's like 3, you can kind of go like 15 and then maybe add these guys, kind of get these guys even. So, we're going to add in Blade of the Blood Chief and Priest of Forgotten Gods into our aristocrat pile. I'll go ahead and just put him back here. So we're going to take Cryptolith out. Put in Priest of Forgotten Gods. Take Diabolic Tutor out. And put in a Blade of the Blood Chief. So those are our aristocrat cards. So with tokens, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then with our counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, you'll know the themes of the deck just kind of by, like I said, you go through building a pre-constructed type part of the deck, and then when you get to this part and you kind of look at the cards and see what kind of theme they're going for, like just going off a theme, I was able to get a big stack knowing that it was aristocrat death type stuff, and then counters and tokens. So again, you'll kind of get where the deck's leaning towards. Okay, so with that in mind, so we have 2 more cards here that we can use to basically just get rid of stuff. I went through the list and I found 2 cards that would go really well with the token part. So they are Creekwood Liege and Slimefoot the Stowaway. So again, I'd say a rough estimate is you want to have like 20 cards for like your main theme. So like this main theme of this deck is like aristocrat. Seems to be most of the cards. So your main theme kind of have about 20 cards. If you have a little less, a little more, it's totally fine. But I'd say about 20. Usually the deck has like a secondary theme too, kind of something that's trying to do off to the side. This one seemed to be about tokens. So generally you want to have about 10 of these. Again, it could be a little more, it could be a little less, just depends. This one had like a 3rd sub-theme as well, which seemed to be about counters. So of course there's 5 counters type matter stuff here. I'd say about 5 if you have a 3rd theme. 5 seems about right, so let's try to stay around there. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we have 18, which is pretty good for aristocrats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which is pretty good for our tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for our counters. Okay. So, gotten to this part, gotten here. There's also a part of this that I like to say, cast big dumb things. And what I mean by that is, going through the list, I try to pull out a few of the more, and I just do this because I have the collection for it, I guess. Depends on the commander, depends on the colors. I try to pull out a few cards that are kind of more on the pricey side, and it's just because usually those cards do big dumb things. And I want to at least have a few of those cards in the deck just in case, you know, if you draw it when you have absolutely nothing going on, it'll do something really good. So, I pulled out a couple of those. And those are the Great Henge and Demonic Tutor. So remember, I've got these piles. I got these guys up here. So now I kind of go through and I say, what cards could I possibly pull out of here to fit these guys into the deck? Again, I just went through the list. I saw like Great Henge is like a $30 or $40 card. Demonic Tutor is like a $30 to $40 card because they're really good. And honestly, if I own these cards, they're expensive. I'd like to play them. This deck, they would be good in this deck. I mean, Demonic Tutor is just good in general. It's a good card. Great Henge would be good in this deck because you could literally play it for 2 mana. And then whenever you cast a creature that's not a token, you draw a card, get a counter on it, which is everything this deck is trying to do as well. So, pretty good. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do actually for these is we'll start with the Aristocrat and just kind of go through. Again, these are all from the pre-constructed, except for because we took out the 4 cards that basically didn't match our theme. So now I kind of go through here and think like what in the pre-constructed maybe isn't that great that we might be able to swap out. Honestly, everything in this pile seems pretty solid. I don't really see anything that would take it out. And this is basically where you're going to spend most of your time, too. We got our pile where we have our card draw, our mana, our single target move our board. Like, this is kind of the meat, the grind of the deck. This is what's going to move our deck. So we have this down. Now we're just going with what our commander is, the theme of it. So, we got Slimefoot, Creekwood Liege, Mycloth, Garruk. Alright, Necrogenesis. Necrogenesis, I don't actually... It's a circumstantial card. I do have a thing about circumstantial cards. Again, Necrogenesis is 2 mana, then you pay 2, exile target creature card from a graveyard, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. If you play this and there's no creatures in the graveyard, it's useless. You have to pay 2 to do it. It only gets creature cards, so we'll put that down here as one of the cards that we can take out. And then Arasta as well. So Arasta, it's a 4 mana legendary enchantment creature spider, has reach. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. It's completely dependent on your opponents playing instants and sorceries. I usually tend to not play cards that are dependent on what your opponents do. So we could take that card out as well. So there's the 2 cards. I'm going to just go through this real quick. I don't really see anything that really bad. I tend to not lean more towards enchantment auras. Unless I'm literally playing that type of deck, I tend not to put them in. They'd have to be really good or really fit with the theme of the commander. This does kind of fit with the theme of the commander because it's already going to have counters. This is going to make it counters. Our commander does have trample, which makes this good. So if it does get really big and stays on the field, it can do a lot of work. So we're going to keep that there. So yeah, so we're going to get rid of Arasta and Necrogenesis. And we could put in our Demonic Tutor and our Great Henge. Our Great Henge, it can fit in our card draw and mana ramp slot too. So again, that fits 2 needs there, which is really good. Alright, so we have our piles. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, we had 34 lands. I like to do 36, so we're going to take 2. We need to take 2 more cards out to get to do those lands. So the 2 cards that I'm going to take out are Whisper Silk Cloak and Lightning Greaves. They are 2 really good cards. The reason why I don't want to put them in this deck is because they have Shroud. The reason why I'm keeping Swiftfoot Boots in and get a Gift of Doom more is because these have Shroud. The reason why that matters in this deck is because Grismold, there are a lot of things that are going to target him to make him bigger, or like the Ozolith. If somebody board wipes, Ozolith gets a lot of counters, I cast Grismold, Lightning Greaves him up, and then I can't target him with the Ozolith because he has Shroud. Now if he has Hexproof, I can target him, but if he has Shroud, I can't. So the counters just kind of have to sit there until I can play another creature. Hopefully I have another creature in my hand to play where I can move the Greaves off and then put them back on, and then, yeah. So it's completely circumstantial. I'd rather take these cards out to put those 2 lands in. So, we're going to take out the Lightning Greaves. Again, they're not bad cards, just in this spot where we need to add 2 lands, I think they're the best 2 cards that could come out of the deck. So again, we're going to take those cards out. Now, the 2 cards I'm going to put in are utility lands. I like to at least have a couple of utility lands in the deck that do things. Now, one of them is Reliquary Tower. I just like having Reliquary Tower in most of my decks because it gives you no maximum hand size. It comes into play untapped, so you always have access to that mana. So yeah, Reliquary Tower, really good. The other card, looking in the list, I decided on Scavenger Grounds. I like Scavenger Grounds because we're going to be killing a lot of creatures. Things are going to be hitting the graveyard. It would be awesome if our opponents could not get those cards back. So again, it comes into play untapped. You can sack it, exile all cards from all graveyards. So pretty good. I don't know if you noticed, but we're not really going to be bringing our creatures back. We just care about our commander making plants, getting rid of those plants, doing things like that. So those are going to be our lands that we add. We already looked at our land base earlier. So yeah, so that's basically the deck. Real quick, I'll go through basically what these cards are since I haven't gone through them already. So in our Aristocrat pile, we have Blade of the Blood Chief is 1 mana. It's an artifact equipment. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on an equipped creature. If the equipped creature is a vampire, put 2 +1/+1 counters instead, and it equips for 1. So pretty good. We do have a couple of vampires in the deck, but mostly what we care about is just that first clause with Grismold. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it could be any creature. When it dies, gets a counter. Priest of Forgotten Gods, 2 mana, creature, human cleric. Basically, you tap him, sack 2 other creatures that you own, which with Grismold most likely will be plants, like just free sack things. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sack a creature, and then you add 2 mana and draw a card. So again, it could be card draw for us. It gives us mana. It does rely on us having 2 other creatures, but we're also making tokens from this pile, so I don't think that's going to be very hard to do. Bastion of Remembrance, 3 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Pretty good on an enchantment, so that's why it's in the deck. Dictative Erebos. This is a really... Nobody likes this card, but it's because it's really good. It's a 5 mana enchantment with flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacks a creature. This can sometimes lock your opponents out of the game. That's why most people don't really like it. But you can also just go off with Grismold in that case, because you're basically wiping everybody else's board. Your commander gets really big, and then you swing in for the win. So Dictative Erebos can usually keep a lot of creatures off the field. Black Market, we saw it earlier. 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, put a charge counter on Black Market. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add black to your mana pool for each charge counter on Black Market. So it is ramp, but it does care about creatures dying, which is why it's in the Aristocrat pile. It gives us a lot of benefit from those creatures dying. So Revel in Riches, 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with sack this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. You could potentially win the game with this. We're giving our opponents plants. 3 turn cycles go around the table, you board wipe with this out, you get 9 treasures. And then if they had anything else out, you get 10. And then, what do you know? Goes around again, beginning of your upkeep, you win the game. And it does ramp whenever a creature dies, so it's still pretty good. Poison Tip Archer, 4 mana, creature elf archer. It has reach and death touch, and whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So pretty good. Blood Artist, a classic card, 2 mana, creature vampire. Whenever a Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses a life, you gain a life. Good Aristocrat card. Zulaport Cutthroat, 2 mana, creature, human rogue ally. Whenever a Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Pretty solid. Sir Conrad, 5 mana, legendary creature, human knight. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. You can also pay 2. Each player puts the top card of the library into their graveyard. So this is pretty good, again, with creatures leaving the battlefield, or creature cards just getting milled. Pretty good aristocrat card. Falconwrath Noble, 4 mana, creature vampire, has flying. Whenever Falconwrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. So it's just, basically, it's like a little bit more expensive version of Blood Artist. Pitiless Plunderer, 4 mana, creature human pirate. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure. So pretty solid. Again, things die, make treasures. Yahenni, Undying Partisan, 3 mana, legendary creature, Aetherborn Vampire, has haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Yahenni. You can also sack another creature. Yahenni gains indestructible on turn. So this card's really good because it's a free sack outlet. You don't have to tap anything. You just activate his ability, sack things, and then whenever opponent's things die, it gets counters. So it's a really good card. Massacre Worm is a 6 mana creature worm. When Massacre Worm enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. So really good aristocrat card. Woestrider is a 3 mana creature horror. When Woestrider enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 white goat creature token, sack another creature, scry 1, and then it does have an escape cost of 5, exile 4 of the cards from your graveyard, and when it escapes, it gets 2 counters on it. So pretty good, gets counters on it, which we like. It's a free sack outlet, which is why it's really good in this case. And then you get a benefit when you sack. Viscera Seer, 1 mana, creature vampire wizard, sack a creature, scry 1, and it's a 1/1. Again, it's a free sack outlet, really good with aristocrat cards. Butcher Malakir is a 7 mana creature vampire warrior, has flying. When Butcher Malakir or another creature you control dies, each opponent sacks a creature. So basically, it's a more expensive Dictative Erebos, except it's a creature. So it's a little bit easier to get rid of. And then finally, we have a Sangromancer with 4 mana. Creature Vampire Shaman, has flying. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you gain 3 life. So this is a pretty good card. So if somebody board wipes and your opponents have a lot of creatures, you're going to gain a lot of life. So pretty good aristocrat card as well. Going over to our tokens, generators, things that care about tokens. We have Slimefoot the Stowaway, 3 mana legendary creature fungus. Whenever a Sapperling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain 1 life. You can also pay 4 colorless to create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token, and it's a 2/3. So this is actually a pretty good card for cards like our Black Market. If that gets a lot of stuff on it, we can just dump it all into Slimefoot, create a bunch of Sapperlings, or we just have them out, don't really have anything else to do with our mana, we can create Sapperlings, so pretty good card for tokens. Creekwood Leech, 4 mana, creature horror. Other black creatures you control get +1/+1. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 1/1 black and green worm creature token onto the battlefield. So pretty good. Boosts up pretty much all of our creatures because all of our creatures are either black or green. And then it also is a token creator as well. So really good. Mycoloth, 5 mana creature fungus, has Devour 2. So as this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature enters the battlefield with twice that many +1/+1 counters on it. Again, we're going to be stacking our creatures. So Mycoloth, again, devours them. And then he also, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token for each +1/+1 counter on Mycoloth. So you sack 2 creatures of this, get 4 counters on them, create 4 Sapperlings on each of your upkeeps. So a lot of people usually try to take this card out as soon as it hits the battlefield. For good reason, it's very good. Very good in this deck. Then our Planeswalker, Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, is a 6 mana legendary Planeswalker, Garruk. Create 2, it's 0 loyalty, is create 2/2 black and green wolf creature tokens with, when this creature dies, put a loyalty counter on each Garruk you control. Pretty good in this deck because A, we're creating tokens for 0 loyalty, 2 of them, and then we have a lot of stuff that want those tokens to die, which again benefits Garruk, so really good. It's -3 is to destroy target creature and draw a card, so good removal. And then it's -6, you get an emblem, which actually, We could basically do this on the second turn, because if we have a sack outlet, we can just -6 it. You get an emblem with creatures you control get +3/+3 and have trample. So this is pretty good planeswalker in this deck. Parallel Lives is a classic token deck card. It's a 4-mana enchantment. If an effect would put one or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many of those tokens on the battlefield instead. So it's just a really good card. Goes in basically every type of token deck if you have it. Dreadhorde Invasion is 2-mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass 1. When you amass, you put a +1/+1 counter on an army you control, but if you don't control one, you create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token first. And then whenever a zombie token you control at power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end turn. Basically what you're doing is every turn you're going to create a token, and maybe you want to sack that token. Maybe you want to do something with that token, whatever. If you sack it every turn, you're basically just going to get another token that you can sack at the beginning of your next turn, and then, yeah, it's on and on. So, always good if you want to have things to sack. And then finally, we have Avenger of Zendikar. Really good card. 7-mana creature elemental. When Avenger of Zendikar enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. Has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a